Greetings. This is Kiran Alattaki with Muhammad Ayman and Omar Hamadi. And on today's podcast, we will talk about the impact of COVID 19. We have a chance to do something extraordinary. As we head out of this pandemic, we can change the world, create a world of love.
A world where we can be kind to each other, no matter what is our race, gender, or religion.
A world we don't need to judge those at the food bank because that may be us if things were slightly different. Let love and kindness be our roadmap.
Kinan, is COVID-19 pandemic Mother Nature's response to our action?
Well, the COVID 19 may not, retrospect, prove to be the tipping point that upends human civilization as we know it, but it should serve as a warning that we will experience even more events in the future as the world heats up. As the COVID 19 sweeps across the planet, leaving death, and many theories are being expounded to explain its ferocity, but none can. So, in my opinion, yes, COVID 19 is Mother Nature's response to our actions to fix the world.
Well, Muhammad Ayman, what is COVID-19 that made shaking hands a fond memory of the past?
According to WebMD.com, coronavirus is a virus that causes an infection in your nose or upper throat. Viruses from the corona family aren't dangerous, but COVID-19 is. Because it's highly contagious. COVID-19 is a virus that causes what doctors call a respiratory infection.
Omar Hamadi, is COVID 19 willing to give us our freedom back? In other words, when will the coronavirus come to an end?
Well, my friend, it's too soon to tell how long the pandemic will last. It depends on many accumulating fast factors. First of all, vaccines shall be provided worldwide in order to boost the herd immunity, which will allow us to recover from the impact of the pandemic faster and more efficiently. Other factors like exponential economic growth and sustainability is a must to refresh the economy and get the world back on track.
Kinan, symptoms can vary widely, so can we know more about the common symptoms of COVID-19? But please note that this is a general overview is compiled for initial self-assessment only and may vary for each individual.
According to the World Health Organization, COVID 19 affects different people in many different ways. Most infected people will develop mild to moderate illness and recover without hospitalization. We have three categories. The first category is the most common symptoms, which will include fever, dry cough, and tiredness. Then we have less common symptoms such as sore throat, diarrhea, headache, loss of taste or smell. And finally, we have the serious symptoms in which we have to seek immediate treatments, and this would be shortness of breath and pain in the chest. So these are the three categories that falls under the symptoms of COVID 19.
Where will we be in the 6 months, a year, or 10 years from now? I lie awake at night wondering what the future holds for my loved ones, my vulnerable friends and relatives. I wonder what will happen to me and to my life.
Even though I'm later than many, there are a number of possible futures, all dependent on how governments and societies respond to coronavirus and its economic aftermath.
Hopefully, we will use this crisis to produce something better, but we may slide to something worse. Now we will start talking about the impacts of COVID-19. We will start off by discussing its effect on education. Kinan, can you please tell us more about that?
That's a lovely question, since we are experiencing the effect ourselves. Well, as you may know, all educational institutes closed until further notice, leaving everyone around the world and the globe scrambling their minds about its effect on students. COVID 19 had an impact on educational rates. Since the beginning of the online year, there was a noticeable increase in dropping out due to many reasons, such as the lack of internet. And according to Forium.com, there are roughly 3.7 billion of the population with no internet access. Additionally, there was a dramatic effect on the students' achievements, so it's expected by the Brookings.com article that students will return with less than 50% of their learning gains in core subjects.
Well, Kinan, I have a question for you. Countries around the world have shut their borders, which inhibited students' mobility across the globe. How did this affect educational institutes?
Great question, Omar. besides the tremendous effect on students' performance, the disruption to international students' mobility severely damaged institutes in terms of their funding model. For example, institutes that model their fundings where international students pay higher tuition fees than domestic ones are actually experiencing major problems and they are now requesting emergency loans. Moreover, this disruption negatively affected students as they will not have the chance to gain such experiences that will assist in the development of their cross-cultural awareness, adaptability and responsibility, open-mindedness and kind-heartedness, and finally advanced learning. Moving on to talk about mental health, Muhammad Ayman, what do you think was the impact of COVID-19 on mental health?
That is a great question, Kinan. We witnessed in 2020 the first quarantine the world had since the Spanish flu, and people weren't able to accept nor to normalize how life became and how they weren't able to do their basic day to day habits anymore, which caused an enormous spike in mental health issues, especially depression and anxiety. The inability to interact with a human over a long period of time generated social anxiety. The inability to go outside the house caused serious levels of depression to many extroverts. And the uncertainty of the upcoming future caused many people to be anxious and overthink what will happen.
And what do you think about the research that showed an increase in the reported loneliness cases because of quarantine?
Before COVID 19, socializing was already a problem for many people, and the reported cases of feeling lonely was already growing from year to year because of the lack of a real human to human connection. However, with the pandemic, the cases grew insanely fast because most of the connections that people already had weren't there, and people didn't have anyone to talk to and lean to when life got hard. And as much as the internet offered us real solutions, there was nothing to replace a real face to face conversation that is based on a pure human to human connection and not the Wi Fi connection. I have a question to you, Omar, that was asked by many scientists, which is what if the COVID 19 pandemic is nature's response to heal and cure itself from our actions?
Well, in hundreds of different forms, human activities caused environmental degradation. The global disturbance and disruption caused by the COVID 19 pandemic has resulted in several positive impacts on the environment and climate. So, yes, we could say that COVID 19 is the planet's weapon against our acts.
Omar, I have one question. Halting most of the flights all over the world caused a major drop in air pollution that humanity never experienced before. How did such drastic changes affect the environment?
Well, that's an amazing question, Kinan. So, COVID 19 resulted in numerous positive impacts. For example, the lights of lives. Auroras have been spotted in phenomenal detail as COVID 19 brings most of the flights worldwide to a halt. Moreover, spread of wildlife in living areas became a noticeable event during the COVID 19 pandemic because of self isolation and quarantine. In Italy, for the first time ever, most rivers are experiencing clearer water in their canals, which allowed the marine diversity to thrive. While the pandemic had countless positive impacts on the environment, it did accompany some negative effects here and there. COVID 19, for example, resulted in Thailand captive elephants to face starvation due to lack of tourism. And moreover, in one of the main zoos in New York City, many captive animals were tested positive for COVID 19. Furthermore, the COVID 19 outbreak has resulted in the disruption of environmental diplomacy efforts, including the causing of postponement of the 2020 United Nations Environmental Conference, which led to the delay in many environmental savings. I could safely say that the positive impacts of COVID 19 on the environment outweigh all its negatives.
Thank you for coming this far and listening to our lovely podcast.
That was made by Kinan Al-Ataki, Muhammad Ayman, and Omar Hamadi.
I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day and stay safe.